What's up, guys? Welcome in to episode 2 of Somewhere in the Middle, the Big 12 show here at Play the Fight Song. My name is Jake. Appreciate you guys tuning in for episode 2. We've got a lot to cover. Week 2 is in the books for the Big 12. We look on to week 3. We're going to cover everything that was. Big 12 flexed its muscles in some spots and also got a few losses that we probably can't afford, but we're going to cover all of that. It was definitely an interesting week of college football, to say the least. Make sure you guys like this video. Hit subscribe while you're here. Subscribe to the channel. We cover you guys a live weekly college football show here at Play the Fight Song each and every single Wednesday, as well as giving you guys some Sunday recaps on top of giving you some fan perspectives from the Iowa side, the Iowa State side from me, and the Nebraska side from our co-host Camden Parks as well. You guys are tuning in tonight if you're from UCF, West Virginia, BYU, Utah, or any of the Heartland schools, anywhere in between. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We've got a lot to cover. We should jump into it. But before we get started, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at No Rivals brand, the best hat in all of college sports. Make sure you shop norivals.com. If you're a Big 12 fan, a lot of schools have these guys. They just came out. If you're a Utah fan, they just came out with some hats for you guys. Oklahoma State, Houston, as you can see on the screen, Arizona State, and TCU, and I believe Baylor as well. Some other Texas schools, Texas Tech. They kind of got yours covered. As an Iowa State fan, we need to get our hat on the map here at No Rivals. Would love to see that. They have Iowa as well. Whether you're into supporting just your team, if you're anything like us, you want to support another school just because they have an awesome logo, make sure to go to shopnorivals.com and check out a hat and use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping. That's PTFS. Like, of course, Play the Fight Song at checkout for free shipping on any one of these hats. If you don't see your hat on the website and you want it, go to the teams tab, request a team, do it 4 times a week, and I promise they'll listen to you. I need to do my part in getting Iowa State here at No Rivals. But either way, they have a ton of hats that are great for wearing at a tailgate on Saturday. So make sure you give our friends at norivals.com a checkout. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with if it's anything like last week, we're going to cover you guys. We're going to cover our week 2 winners. Maybe it's an individual performance. Maybe it's just a team overall. We're going to cover some losers. And then, unlike last week, I'm just going to run down some quick thoughts from week 2, because honestly, there was just so much that happened, and I need to get it out. Whether maybe it's one sentence or just one thought on your team going forward into this year. After this weekend, I think it's still pretty appropriate to say, like, how was the Big 12's performance overall? Ironically, it was somewhere in the middle. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was bad, because some teams took care of business. You had most of your top teams take care of business like they should, which was good to see. But there were a couple of matchups where you really kind of wanted to squeeze more. If you're a Kansas fan, if you're a Cincinnati fan, if you're a Colorado fan and you're joining us, we'll get all into that. I want to first start off. We got to go winners. Okay, first winner of the weekend. Let's go the Friday night slate. BYU is one of my winners this weekend. Overall, last week I covered Jake Retzloff. He wouldn't be in my winners column this weekend just because, more specifically, he did struggle a little bit this game, but they rode with him. I even saw some Twitter, calling for Gary Bohannon. I think it was more actually on the Baylor side. Some of the Baylor people were watching this game, wanting their boy back in the game. But kudos to Kalani Sitake. He stuck with his guy. LJ Martin went down. A couple of other running backs got banged up. And this defense, man, for BYU just continued to stay the course and make big play after big play all Friday night long. Tyler Beatty, the defensive end for BYU, he was massive, as you can see here. Just the defensive line saved him. I think they put a lot of pressure on Preston Stone for the first couple of possessions, and then they switched to Jennings for SMU at quarterback, and neither one of them were able to get comfortable. BYU was on them all night long with pressure, stopping the run. I thought they did a really nice job, and I believe – I don't have the box score on the top of my head. SMU kicked 5 field goals, so they didn't score a single touchdown that game. Awesome job. I think this BYU defensive line, I think, can push its own in the Big 12. It's kind of just a matter like last year. I just don't know how much they have in the 2 deep, so they need to stay healthy. Guys like Beatty and others, they got to stay healthy. I don't think they can afford to really go to a second string, and that goes for their offensive line too. But their defensive line's legit. I think it's just as good as most of the other schools in the Big 12. So kudos to them. They are my week 2 winners. On to the next one. Guys, As if you know, you listened to me on week 1 or last week. I'm an Iowa State fan, but I know my opinions are unbiased. But I think all Big 12 fans can agree that Iowa State is a winner in this week. Winning on the road, making the second half comeback that they did, and knocking off. I mean, Iowa's probably a top 6 Big 10 team, right? So you're taking out a top team and their home place in one of the 2 best conferences in college football was a huge resume builder for not only Iowa State, but I think for the Big 12 in general. So if you want to go back to our channel. If you want to hear my thoughts more on the Iowa State game, we have a ton of them. We did our recap last week. If you want to go back and listen to see if I sounded like I know what I was talking about, or if you just want to go back to our recap. I recorded that last night. That's up in your feeds as well to hear all of my thoughts on this win. Big win for Iowa State, but honestly, it was a massive win for the Big 12, and they needed it this weekend because a couple of teams just, quite frankly, didn't show up. So that being said, let's go to our losers. First loser, Cincinnati, and they were, I would say, 3 minutes away from being my winner. Had Pitt on the ropes at home, entered the fourth quarter, going up 27-14. Brendan Sorsby played really well. They ran the ball really well, and they just couldn't quite finish it. Hats off to Pitt, honestly. Pat Narduzzi coming into town. I thought they executed well in the fourth quarter. I don't necessarily believe that either team played that bad. The yardages were up on either side. Both of them, both quarterbacks played well. Both running backs had 150 yards on each side. This was overall one of the top 5 games of the weekend, and it didn't really have a ton of eyes on it because there was just a lot more going on, and people weren't tuning into this unranked matchup. But if you have the chance to go back and watch it, I highly suggest it. Tough game. It was just one that Cincinnati, I think, really had to have. Dante Corleone, they got back. He was ready to go for this week. But I am higher on Cincinnati after this week than I was going into the season. I wasn't sure if this team was going to get to 6 wins. Looking back at their schedule today, I think there's a lot of opportunities still for them to win. They still have Colorado on the schedule. I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe they get TCU at home. I know they have Arizona State. Miami of Ohio on the road this weekend, going to be a big game for them. And then they get Houston at home the following week. So I'm listing like 4 or 5 games that they can still grab to get that 6-win mark, which I think would be big for Satterfield and this entire football team. But they're going to be battling for 6 wins, and you're going to look back on this one in November and think, man, we had that one. We had that one big time, and kind of let that one go. Still a lot of season left for Cincinnati, but just letting that one go in the fourth quarter it's got to be a loser for me. Much like Texas Tech last week, I think you guys know where I'm going with my last loser of the weekend. Colorado, and particularly this offensive line. Just it continues to let everyone down. I guess I don't know. I was personally a little bit hoodwinked by Deion Sanders, by Coach Prime, talking all offseason how they got the right guys in place. They have Jordan Seaton, that 5-star freshman, as you see there in the picture. They replaced guys with guys from Indiana, another couple of pieces. A guy from Houston, I think the Johnson guy from Houston comes in, was like a 4-star transfer. And this team, man, this offensive line is one of the softer offensive lines I've watched all weekend. Granted, go back to our week 2 pilot episode last week, and you hear me say I don't like this offensive line against Nebraska's front 7. So I'm not surprised, but watching the game, it just was a lot worse than what I anticipated. Just straight from the get-go. I mean, just guys, you have the Hudemacher kid, if I'm getting that right, for Nebraska and nose tackle, just bulldozes the center for Colorado on that second possession. Ty Robinson gets a sack. I think it was the first play of the game, big number 9 for Nebraska. And it was over from the start. And Nebraska's offense didn't impress me that much. And they were pretty conservative and pretty poor in the second half, I thought. And Colorado, if there was anything that you needed to see, it was probably the defense to show up for Colorado and give them a chance. And I thought that they did in the second half. And this offense that we thought was going to be high flying with those good receivers and with Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback, you just thought they were going to be able to have more success. But this offensive line continues to let them down. This run game is the worst in the Big 12. I mean, it's horrendous. I'm just, to be frank, I don't like the running backs. I don't think they're really any good. Down Hayden, I don't even know if he got any carries. I kind of stopped paying attention a little bit after the first and second quarter. We had it on one of our side TVs, but it was just not worth paying attention. This group is getting pushed around, and we're going to talk about their game on Saturday because it's massive for just Colorado in general. And to be quite honest, I think the Big 12 really needs Colorado to step up this week for its entire Big 12 conference perspective. So it's going to be interesting. We'll cover that as we move forward. If anybody, if I'm hearing in the comments, like, what are my thoughts on, Shadur's comments post game? I mean, are we surprised at this point? I don't think it was as bad as he made it sound. I don't think he was completely throwing his offensive line under the bus. I mean, he does make a good point. Your job as a quarterback is very hard when you don't even have positive rushing yards in the first half, and it's not good. I don't really care if Peyton Manning's back there. I think you're going to struggle when you get that much pressure. But I think there's some things that Shadur can also kind of improve on as well. All right, winners and losers. I told you guys I wanted to spend a couple of minutes going through just my week 2 thoughts for the conference as a whole. A lot that happened. The Big 12 went 5-5 in those P4 matchups between them and out of conference people. When I predicted it, I had the Big 12 going 5-5 in our prediction segment last week. By the way, my predictions of picks on who I thought was going to win, we went 8-2 last week. So not a bad start for the start of this show. So let's see how we can do again this week. But yeah, I kind of thought the Big 12 would be 5-5. There were some aspects I was just disappointed in. Obviously, the Colorado performance was disappointing. Texas Tech was a letdown. I said Washington State would win. I just didn't think Texas Tech would look that bad. Houston looked better, but we'll kind of get into all of that. Let's start with Utah. One of my winners last week, Cam Rising, coming back and how good that offense looked and how smooth it looked with him under center against Southern Utah. And the same thing goes for their win last Saturday against Baylor. Going up 23-0. Everything's clicking. Baylor looks like they're struggling. Daquan Finn had a tough day. I think he only threw for about 115 yards passing. Utah's defense is still really good. But when you take 7 away from that offense, from Kyle Whittingham's offense, guys, it doesn't even crack the bottom. Like, it's probably bottom 3 in the Big 12. Like, it was bottom 100 in college football last year as far as yardages and things like that. And the Pac-12 was really good last year. And I know, you put the Wilson kid in, who's Zach Wilson's brother, true freshman. You stick him in there, and it's a tough spot for a young kid. And maybe with weeks of preparation, he can be better. He was a 4-star recruit. I understand that, but doesn't it just seem like the same thing as last year with Barnes? Bryson Barnes, who took over. I thought Barnes was a serviceable quarterback, and it just never clicked. I don't know what it is. It's the fact that, Cam Rising has been here for a while. Kyle Whittingham trusts him. He knows what to do. He's willing to put the ball in Cam Rising's hands. I think it takes a while for Kyle Whittingham to trust his quarterbacks. So maybe that's part of the issue. But undisclosed hand injury, I have no idea what the timetable is for this. Whittingham was very short in his comments. It could be next week. And it could be like broken fingers. He could be out for a couple months. We'll have to take it day by day and really see what comes of it. I'd guess, does he play Saturday against Utah State? I would say no at this point. I would say no. If they think like he would be able to go and they can kind of milk it and have him ready for a couple of weeks, then I would say save it. But at this point, I'm recording this Monday night. I do not think Cam Rising will be playing on Saturday. Avery Johnson, let's stick with another quarterback. I just want to say Avery Johnson is going to get better. And I think there's some people in the Iowa State circle, actually, that really like to kind of take this kid down and say that he's overrated. I don't think he's overrated. I just think that they're pretty conservative with him at this point. 8 carries for 40 yards rushing the football on Saturday. He didn't run very much against UT Martin. I think they're saving some stuff for him. I think, obviously, we know this kid's best part of his game is running the football as a dual threat quarterback. And it's going to open a lot of things up outside of the pocket. And I think it's going to improve his throwing. But right now, they're not using his legs as much. I know they have a sure back in DJ Giddens. Dylan Edwards had a nice touchdown on Saturday. But it just seems like these first two games, they're kind of saving it. You know, Friday's a big game. Friday night, Arizona comes to town. Maybe we'll see more, maybe RPO things, maybe more design runs. We'll have to wait and see. But I really think that Coach Kleiman is holding some things back. And maybe now that we're kind of really starting to ramp up into the meat of their schedule here, we'll start to see Avery Johnson unleash a little bit. I do think he can improve throwing the ball, yes. But what is this? His fourth? That was his fourth start in his collegiate career on Saturday. As an Iowa State fan, Rocco Beck wasn't perfect in his first month in his career either. So I'm still very high on this kid. I just want to kind of slow down the haters, I guess is what I'm trying to say with what people's takes on Avery Johnson. Next, I would say let's go to the other quarterback in the Sunshine State, Jalen Daniels. This was a guy 2 years ago who was preseason Big 12 Player of the Year and dealt with a back injury last year, was out most of the season. Jason Bean takes over, was a perfect backup to kind of still help Kansas win 9 games. Man, he struggled on Saturday. Daniels did. 3 picks. I went back and watched it. The picks were bad, man. You can't throw that screen. Pick 6 gives Illinois the lead going into half. And then the other 2 were just, quite frankly, underthrows. And I don't think Jalen Daniels is a bad thrower. I've always considered him to be a pretty good passer. Yes, he's a dual threat quarterback, but I thought he could throw the ball better. And I just wasn't as impressed on Saturday. A 32 QBR. He struggled. I thought he was finding it a little bit in the second half, but again, his third and final pick was just Arnold was open. I think he was targeting Arnold, and he just underthrew it. It's early. This has no impact on Kansas this season as far as what they want to accomplish. And Coach Leipold said that in his press conference. I think he's 100% right. You know, Kansas is one of those teams that what's it matter at this point? You're going to beat Illinois. You're going to beat UNLV this weekend and build a resume good enough to get an at-large bid in the college football playoff. No, like take it week by week. You just got to get to the Big 12 championship, and then anything can happen. And who knows? Maybe we're going to get old Jalen Daniels back by then. I believe in this kid. I think he's still one of the better quarterbacks in this league. I'm sure a back injury coming back is just going to be tough. And guys, keep in mind, he didn't have much to really play off of last week against Lindenwood. Like this was his first real game back from injury, his first full game. So much like Avery Johnson, let's pump the brakes on our thoughts on Kansas this year. Next, Houston's defense. You know, I don't have a picture to show you guys, but if you guys didn't watch that game, Houston took Oklahoma to the wire, lost 16-12, held no more points, held Oklahoma to no more points after the 10-minute mark, or I'm sorry, after the 13-minute mark in the third quarter. This game was just all around boring. Like it was pretty bad after the middle of the third quarter. The defense was good. The defense is pesky. I am still not a believer in that offense. Donovan Smith played better, but he also had his moments again where a couple of bad throws. I know he was under duress all night. Danny Stutzman was just on top of him, just consistently in the pass rush. And Dominic Williams from the TCU transfer in the middle for Oklahoma was really good too. It was a tough night for Houston offensively. I still don't think this offense is very good. They can't run the football to save their lives. If they're gonna sneak out and steal 4 games this season in the Big 12, it's gonna be their defense carrying them as they did. I mean, they played pretty good against UNLV, and then it's just gonna be one of those things where you're gonna need really good Donovan Smith, and we haven't gotten that yet this year. Maybe they get it on Saturday against Rice. We'll have to wait and see, but it's a winner and a loser for me, man. Like for Houston, like if you're Willie Fritz, your guys are fighting for you after getting punched in the mouth last week and looking pretty bad on national television against a G5 program. So I was happy to see them kind of bounce back and at least put up a fight against Oklahoma. KJ Jefferson, I mean, he's not as bad as people thought, huh? 12 for 15, 185 yards, used his legs a little bit. Just see a lot of hate on KJ Jefferson on Twitter, and I'm going to be defending it until I can't. So I thought he was efficient. That's usually what he's going to have to be good enough because their run game's phenomenal. RJ Harvey, again, I think had 4 touchdowns. Absolute stud. UCF hasn't played anybody yet, but they're still just under the radar. You're a UCF fan, like, wait your time. It's coming. And it honestly might be this Saturday. Lastly, let's just talk about it. I don't want to highlight them as a loser like I did last week. Texas Tech, none of this surprised me. I said Washington State would win this football game. It's just kind of the way it happened. 10 penalties, 4 turnovers. Taj Brooks is out with an arm injury. He's listed probable against North Texas. Texas Tech also has a lot of guys injured, but there's just no excuse for kind of what happened on Saturday. They outgained Washington State, but the turnovers and Baron Morton just can't, like, he can't make some of those throws, man. That goal line interception, like, it's 2nd and goal, take the sack. Like, it's just kind of one of those young guy things where I just don't think you can afford it. And it just kind of really took the wheels off them making a comeback. I think it was kind of over at that point anyways, but just the mental mistakes, and their defense still looks vulnerable. I mean, they outgained Washington State, but a lot of quarterback design runs out of Washington State that really gashed big plays for Texas Tech. You just didn't look great. And then Josh Kelly, the Washington State transfer, Texas Tech's best wide receiver at this point, just has a bad fumble. Can't happen. These bad turnovers. It's just not going to win you football games going on the road like that. And 2nd year in a row, McGuire coach team just can't get off to a good start in September. It's plain and simple. So we'll wait and see. We'll see if they can bounce back. They did last year. They're going to need Taj Brooks to be really good if they can, but North Texas is a really good offense. Chandler Rogers, sorry, I'm forgetting, not Chandler Rogers. Somebody help me out here. The old TCU quarterback is go. It is, yeah, I think it is Chandler Rogers. I might have be thinking of somebody else, but old TCU quarterback before Max Duggan is the quarterback for North Texas this weekend. He can throw it around the yard. They're going to be up tempo. So it's going to be another test for that Texas Tech defense. So that's kind of my short thoughts on week 2. It was packed. Oklahoma State wise, you just got the win. Like, I think Arkansas is better than what most people think. I know I said that they're at this point they're probably a below average SEC school, but their offense is too good, and I think Petrino is just too good of a play caller. They're going to get some sneaky wins this year in this league, and they're going to surprise some people. I just We'll see if they fight for 5 or 6 wins. They got a tough schedule, but it's still a decent win. The defense stepped up when you had to. You won without an Ollie Gordon all-star game, like kind of another slow start for Ollie. He had 100 yards last week, but it was kind of like a slow 100. He had a ton of carries and just hasn't gotten into his groove yet, but that was the same thing last year. So we'll have to wait and see. Bad Tulsa team they're playing this week. Maybe they get right and get that offense going again. And the defense, people were saying they weren't impressed with Oklahoma State's defense. I thought it was fine. Like, I do think Arkansas's offense is really good. I think the defense will be just fine there. So no, not worried about Oklahoma State. I'm not worried about Kansas State. I told you guys Tulane would cover, and it was a grinder of a game. Some weird things bounced their way, but that's college football. So the teams that did survive, good on them. I think you live to see another week. I'm not gonna just sail the ship on any of those teams being good enough to win this league, because I think they are. I think they're capable. All right. We'll finish this off just like every other week. Again, I try to keep these at 30 minutes at best. We just try to run through these and highlight these quick and highlight the big things in this conference. We got week 3 games and predictions. First, let's go. We'll go. I'll list off the games for you guys, and then I'm going to go prediction time at the end, just like we did last week. So let's start Thursday night. Arizona State travels to San Marcos and plays Texas State. Texas State coming off a fantastic win against UTSA. It was a pick 'em, and they just blew the Roadrunners off the water, out of the water, and just a really, really good team. TJ Kinney, one of the best young coaches in college football. He could potentially be a Big 12 coach next year for maybe one of these schools. So we'll have to wait and see there. But spreads at 2. Arizona State's favored by 2. It's a stinky game, man. That is a tricky game for this Arizona State team. Let's go to Friday night. Huge one. Absolutely huge one. Arizona travels on the road to Kansas State. Again, like the Baylor-Utah game last week, this is not a conference game, but I think it's a really good indicator for, is this Arizona State team or this Arizona team, are they going to be legit? Last week, just had an absolute sleeper against Northern Arizona. I think they only put up 22 points. I didn't have eyes on it. It was just one of those things I wasn't worried about. I think they're just trying to focus on this week. So I'm really interested to see what this Arizona team's capable of. And Kansas State's got to bounce back again after a tough game last week. Kansas hosts UNLV. We just saw what this UNLV team did to granted, not a very good Big 12 team, but we just saw what they did to a Big 12 team 2 weeks ago. Really good defense. Barry Odom, another G5 coach that's really, really good. Lines at 7 there. It's close. It's close. It's going to be interesting. Oklahoma State travels on the road at Tulsa. Cincy travels to Miami of Ohio. You remember last year, Miami won in Cincinnati, so got to be a revenge spot for Cincinnati. Texas Tech hosts North Texas. West Virginia goes to Pittsburgh for the backyard brawl again this year. They play at Pitt. Utah travels to Logan, Utah, an in-state rivalry at Utah State. I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, if you're a Utah fan, let us know in the comments, like, how deep is the Utah State rivalry? I would love to know. Maybe it's like an old Mountain West rivalry where they don't see each other anymore. Speaking of which, let's go to that. The Rocky Mountain Showdown. Colorado State. Colorado travels to Fort Collins. Lines at 7.5. Got to be a bounce back game for the Buffs. They got to have this one. I don't care if they cover. They got to win. I don't think Colorado State's a good football team. Baylor hosts Air Force. Air Force is down this year. This isn't usually your Air Force of old. They really, really struggle offensively. I think this is a good opportunity for Dave Aranda to get a non-conference win at home. Then we finally get our first Big 12 conference game. We have UCF traveling to TCU. Or I'm sorry, I think TCU is traveling to Orlando to play UCF. This is going to be awesome. 6:30 on Fox. Really excited because both of these teams have played. I guess I saw TCU at Palo Alto a couple weeks ago against Stanford. So I know a little bit about TCU, but I really haven't seen a ton of UCF yet. I went back and watched some film against Sam Houston, but like we don't know what we're getting out of UCF, and this is going to be a great test for them. Houston hosts Rice. Like Miami of Ohio and Cincinnati, Rice won this game last year. Rice is really down. They're bad after some guys leaving just because it was a senior-led group. Got to win this game if you're Willie Fritz. Get back on track. Get your first win as the Houston head coach. BYU travels to Wyoming. Wyoming just got spanked by Arizona State a couple of weeks ago. Kalani Sitake, could they be 3-0 again heading into Big 12 conference play? They went undefeated, I believe, in the non-con last year too. Would be huge for them for trying to get back to bowling in the new Big 12. So let's do this. Let's go prediction time. We'll go back through those games. Arizona State is a 2-point favorite. I'm taking Texas State. I think Texas State is really good. Jordan McLeod, the former Sun Belt Player of the Year last year, could have been a Power 4 quarterback, and he's quarterback for Texas State. He's really good. Ishmael Mahdi, their running back for Texas State, another stud, 1,000-yard rusher. I just think that this is the best team that they've seen so far. And they played Mississippi State last week, got up early. The game was never in doubt, 30-3, and Mississippi State almost had a chance. But, that being said, I've got to give it to Texas State here. I think it's just such a trap spot. Thursday night game. I like Texas State. Give me the Bobcats. Arizona at Kansas State. I'm gonna take the Wildcats. I'm going to take Arizona as a 7-point underdog traveling to Manhattan. I'm a little concerned with how the Arizona run defense will fare, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt right now. I was, the Tulane quarterback Mensah last week was good in spots. He had some bad turnovers, but I think he showed some vulnerability in Kansas State that Noah Fafita just quite frankly won't make those mistakes. And if he could have the success Mensah did without the turnovers, I think they can go on the road and win this one in Manhattan. So I will take Arizona. Kansas at home against UNLV. Bounce back game. I think Lance Leipold is one of the best coaches in this conference. Give me Kansas. I know UNLV is going to be solid. They got a really good defense. It's going to be another good challenge for Jalen Daniels. They live and they learn. I think Devin Neal will help Daniels out and be able to run the football there at that I don't know, the soccer stadium. I don't really I don't even remember what that soccer stadium's called. Oklahoma State travels to Tulsa. Give me Oklahoma State. They probably even cover. Tulsa's really, really bad. Cincinnati at Miami of Ohio. I'm taking Cincinnati. I think they get a revenge game. Bitter taste in their mouth after last week that they should have had. I like Sorsby. I think he's better than what people give him credit for. And I think I was wrong on him as well as a former Indiana quarterback. So give me Cincinnati in this one. I think they take out Miami of Ohio. Texas Tech at North Texas. I mean, you can give me the Red Raiders. I don't. If Texas Tech does not win this game, the wheels are going to fall off. So give me Texas Tech there. West Virginia at Pitt. I think Pitt is coming off a really high win. I love the way this defense is going to match up with Pitt, and for West Virginia, and I think that it travels just like they did last year. I mean, the offense really didn't do much. West Virginia ran the ball well, but the defense was all over Pitt. I think the same thing goes for this year. Just kind of like how Penn State was on West Virginia a couple of weeks ago. So give me West Virginia there, getting the win on the road. Give me Utah over Utah State with or without Cam Rising. I'm really interested to see how Bryson Barnes does against his former school in Utah. Colorado at Colorado State. I'm gonna take Colorado one more time, and I really hope they don't let me down. The Big 12 needs this one. I think Colorado needs this one bad. The wheels fell off the wagon in middle of October last year. The wagon could crash and before October even gets here this year if they're not able to win in Fort Collins. Going to be an awesome game. Not a ton of big games this week, so they need that one. Baylor takes down Air Force. Air Force is bad this year. I think Houston gets a revenge game against Rice, so give me Houston there. BYU goes on the road at Wyoming. This Wyoming team does not impress me at all. I think the defense is gonna travel again for BYU. I hope to see a little more offense out of BYU, maybe run the football a little bit better. I think they'll do it against Wyoming, so give me the Cougars there. That line's going up. It's up to like 10 or 11 now. And now let's cap it off with the first conference game of the year, UCF, TCU. I'm going to take UCF. I like UCF in this one. I need to see it. I think KJ Jefferson's a much better quarterback than Josh Hoover. Josh Hoover's young. RJ Harvey in the first two games has been phenomenal. And if you guys forgot, they have a MAC player of the year at the second string position in Penny Boone for the running back for UCF. So a lot of weapons. Even Townsend last week had over 100 yards. He was good. I trust these weapons in UCF to get it done against TCU. So that is my final prediction. Kind of running through this a little quick. We're keeping this at 30 minutes. I got to keep everybody happy here, but appreciate you guys tuning in. Before you guys head out, make sure you like the video, subscribe, whoever your team's playing this weekend. Let us know your predictions for your scores below. And as always, we'll see you guys next week. We'll break down week 3 heading into week 4. Make sure to shop our friends at No Rivals. Use the code PTFS and get yourself a sweet Big 12 hat. My name's Jake. Appreciate you guys tuning in one more time. And as always, we got to send us out. Let's play it.